to my spoiler review of Warcraft, a movie that I surprisingly enjoyed, although I do see the flaws in it. So we're going to start out talking about what I liked most about the movie, and I think what is somewhat of a missed opportunity. But if Doctor Strange has this kind of magic in it, it's gonna be amazing. And actually, one of you forwarded me some merchandise designs for Doctor Strange that seem to hint at these kind of visuals. And I guess they weren't ready in time for the Doctor Strange trailer, but methinks that was a mistake. I think they should have made sure that at least one of them was ready for the first trailer and not just the poster, because I think that would have done a lot to get Doctor Strange off to a stronger start and would have maybe distracted people from the unfortunate whitewashing. But anyway, we're here to talk about Warcraft, and again, this is a spoiler review, so you have been warned. And as for me, my perspective is that of one who is not a gamer. Now, I'm familiar with the world of Warcraft because I've written manga stories for the brand. Blizzard hired me through Tokyo Pop to write actually 2 stories, and I actually wrote 2 StarCraft stories as well, so I kind of knew the space. And therefore, I think it was a little bit easier for me to wade into the world of Warcraft with this movie, but also I can tell you that from someone who has played in this world, there are better stories to tell. Now maybe for those of you who are gamers are like, no, this is where you have to start, but I don't agree with that. Now the first thing I want to talk about, so I said I want to talk about the best stuff first, and that is magic. Oh, I loved the magic so much in this movie. Every time that anyone did any kind of magic on screen, I was super happy. I liked the blue magic, the good magic. I liked the green magic, the fell, the evil magic. I liked the fire. I loved the lightning wall that Medivh was able to put, into that secret meeting, right? I was like, that is so cool. I liked the way it came to be. I liked the way it was in execution. I thought the whole thing was perfect. And by that I mean it's from the actors, doing the movements on set, to the FX team, the visual effects team, executing it. And I actually remember reading, and I actually think this was another one of you that forwarded me this article, that the people who did the visual effects for this movie are big Warcraft fans. So they wanted to make sure that it felt just like the gameplay. And I think to that degree, they succeeded massively. I think that this movie, we're going to talk about POV momentarily, but I think that if they had the POV of this movie through a mage, it would have been amazing. Maybe, Khadgar should have been the lead character in the movie, but then, of course, they shouldn't have cast Ben Schnetzer in the role. But, coulda, woulda, shoulda, we're talking about the movie that we got. All right, so I like that. Also, it reminded me a little bit of Angelina Jolie and Maleficent and the magic that was shown there. And I remember her saying that she sat down with the visual effects team and talked them through what she was imagining when she was on set. So that kind of teamwork really has strong results. So very impressed. And I also liked Gul'dan, the orc mage, when he was using fell magic and when he was sucking life forces out of people with the tribal drums banging in the background. I mean, that was cool stuff. I really liked it. And I liked, I have to say the consequences in this movie and the gravity were pretty impressive for a fantasy film. Usually everyone's okay or everyone dies in a way that no one really notices. But this was, we're going to talk about deaths later on in the spoiler review. But this movie took its toll. All right. I also wanted to mention the gate. I thought the gate was very cool. I liked the way it was powered. I liked the way they would have in the beginning, I thought it was cool to show the way you went through it and went into the water. And I knew they were going to come out in water too, right? I was like, you're totally underwater. When let's see here, when Durotan and Draka were trying to go through, I was like, this is so cool. So that was really well realized, I thought. And then later on, when the humans were running through the gate back to I forgot to write the name of the human city. Stormwind, I think, right? But anyway, when the orcs were on the other side, they were so frustrated as the humans ran into the force field, being on one way of a mirror, a one-way mirror. That was really cool. I just thought that was really well executed. And it was just a quick thing, but it made a difference to me as a viewer. Next up, The elves. I love the elves. I saw someone write in my non-spoiler review that they were distracted by the Asian elf, but I loved the Asian elf. The Asian elf had a cool glowing scar across his face. I loved that the elves, that not only their eyes glowed and their scars glowed, but their mouths glowed, right? Like they had like swallowed like day glow paint. It was so neat. As I said in my non-spoiler review, they were like the living embodiment of the Suicide Squad trailer logo, and like in an awesome way. Like I really feel. So I like the elves quite a bit, and I would have liked to have seen more of them. That leads me to my next point, is that I feel this movie didn't go full fantasy enough, because those were the strongest elements, right? Like, I think, when it tried to still stay somewhat realistic, it just seemed a little too cosplay, a little not cool enough, because we're all comparing it to Lord of the Rings, which was the most realistic fantasy movie in recent memory. I think actually maybe of all time, because Peter Jackson executed it so well. It was like, this is like gritty, awesome fantasy, right? So I think that since that already exists, I think Warcraft really needed to go in the other direction and be like, I've got elves, I've got, it has dwarves, I've got, all this magic. We're just going to go like total full fantasy, kind of like almost like what Disney does with their live action fairy tale movies so successfully, where they just give you everything you want. More elaborate costumes, cooler armor, just more. And I think that maybe this movie would have maybe been easier for audiences to understand what it's trying to do. Here it just seems like a lighter Lord of the Rings, and I don't think that's fair to the property or the potential of the property, because when the movie gets stuff right, it really gets stuff right. So next I want to talk about Duncan Jones. I think that Duncan Jones does a good job here, and I think he shows why he's a talented filmmaker, and anyone who can get this complex of a story off the ground deserves a pat on the back, right? And another gig, hopefully. And it is a well-crafted film, but what I think is interesting about it is that you can't really see a strong visual signature to the movie, right? Like when you see a Spielberg movie or a Christopher Nolan movie, or even some degree like a Scorsese movie, right? Like all the great directors, also J.J. Abrams with lens flare, right? I mean, and he's also like Spielberg light to some degree. But, you can tell that it's that director at work. And I don't really see that with Duncan Jones. And I think that actually is a problem for the movie as a whole. It totally lacks a point of view. It lacks a point of view artistically, and it lacks a point of view in terms of a character, right? Like, who is our entry point into this world? And I think that, the movie just unfolds, right? It's like, you're in the world of Warcraft, enjoy. And you're like, wait a minute, I need a guide. And you don't have a guide creatively or structurally. And I think that is probably the main problem with the movie beyond casting. Casting's pretty poor as well. But next I want to talk about world building, which I also felt was a little bit lacking. Now, visually, the movie looked fantastic. And I'm sure that if I were to pull aside anyone who worked on this movie, they would be able to tell me a ton about the world of Warcraft. And probably a lot of gamers too. And maybe they feel that's why they didn't need to do a good job of explaining the worlds too much, because gamers already come in with that knowledge. But they have to realize that for this movie to be the big performer that Hollywood needs it to be, to respect video game movies and to make more of these, that non-gamers need to be like, okay, I understand where I am. I never was able to get my bearings, and I don't think I spent enough time anywhere in particular to really get a feel for it. And also, a lot of the times you would only be in like small specific parts of locations, and I would have preferred like, hey, let's take a walk while we have this conversation and show me more of, Medivh's tower, right? Karazhan, Karazhan. Show me more of that. Show me more of Stormwind. I mean, I appreciated the walk to battle when they went through the streets more than any of the throne room conversations, because I was like, oh, cool, I get to see this place a little bit. Is that a giant statue of Medivh? You're going to have to tear that down. Or I guess it's a warning. But anyway, I thought that the world building, there was a lot of potential there, and I believe the work was done behind the scenes, but it wasn't done in the movie. All right, now as for the cast overall, I wanted to talk about the weird token diversity that the cast had. They had a lot of different male and female characters. Like, for instance, one of you pointed out to me in the non-spoiler review, they're like, didn't you love how many female orcs there were? And I was like, yes, I thought that was very cool. But it was just kind of, again, it was just there for the sake of being there, right? Like, it'd be like, oh, here's a dwarf, here's an elf, oh, here's a black human character, here's an Asian human character. But none of them were ever leads and never got to do anything really big. It was just orcs and I guess Paula Patton to some degree, right? And then humans, right? So, I mean, I felt like, I was like, and then because the movie wasn't diverse, like organically, it just seemed like a little awkward. I was like, oh, okay, I can see you're trying to be diverse, but I don't really see it, and now you've just pointed out to me how you're not actually that diverse. But on to the cast. Travis Fimmel as Lothar. I thought, he's a TV actor. He comes from Vikings. And I think it's weird, by the way, that he's Australian, yet he seems to be permanently switched over to like a Euro-Viking accent, right? Which I enjoyed, but it just confuses me that he's Australian and that's his accent. But anyway, he's a TV actor, and I think he comes across as a TV actor. Like, he won me over through the course of the film. I was like, okay, this guy's kind of cool. He's kind of sexy. I was feeling the heat between him and Garona. But he just really, I was never like, yeah, Lothar, let's follow that guy around. I guess he was like one of the best in the movie, but I was never like, oh yeah, Lothar's so cool. I want like a Lothar t-shirt or like Lothar merchandise. It was like, meh, he's that guy in the movie, right? I also felt that while he did an okay job with this whole son angle, he seemed not old enough to me to have such an older son of fighting age, right? Like, to his credit, Fimmel sold the emotional moments, like when his son was killed, but also, that was like one of the lesser deaths in the movie, because like we all knew his son was going to die, like as soon as his son was pretty much introduced. Then next, Paula Patton. As I said, I did like the chemistry with Lothar between their characters. And I did think that Paula Patton's character, I liked the eyes that they gave her. I thought they were very cool, and they made her very mesmerizing as a character. But I thought it was a little comical how a lot of the time she came across kind of like the softcore porn component of the movie, right? Like, everyone wants to have sex with Garona as she walks through the throne room. And I'm like, this is pretty awkward for Ruth Negga's character, Lady Taria, the queen, right? Like, her husband's like eyeballing this half-orc sex pot stripper character, and his wife's right there. Like, it was really weird. I was like, can everyone try and control themselves for some kind of decorum here, right? And then, like, when she called out Khadgar for eyeballing her at the campsite, I thought that was kind of weird. I was like, yeah, I kind of got that too, Garona, but you seem like you're bragging, and that doesn't make your character that cool. So, I don't know, and all her talk about mates, I was like, you're pretty big on the mate talk for someone who was, considered less than, like a pet, pretty much, by when she was with the orcs, right? Maybe she was showboating to try and, not let anyone know that she came from such a bad place, but I think that should have been made more clear, and I think it would have been done in a more likable way if she wasn't always showboating sexually. So I thought that was kind of weird. But I did think that Paula Patton kind of redeemed herself, especially when her character got more clothes towards the middle of the movie, and then she became kind of cool. She was like that typical Saturday morning female character, right? Who's like the one female character that fights with all the male characters. Like, you see them all the time. And I thought that Paula Patton, to her credit, filled that role nicely. And I thought that, when she came in, it's like, I guess she was like slave Leia for like the beginning of the movie, and that kind of worked, I guess, to some degree. But anyway, I do want to touch on Ruth Negga as Lady Taria. I don't know why she was there. I mean, she had some nice moments, and Ruth Negga did the best she could with the role that she had, but I thought she had zero chemistry. Speaking of chemistry with Dominic Cooper, they didn't really seem like a couple. And then, like, at the beginning when Travis Fimmel was like, "You're my sister," and she's like, "You're my brother," I was like, I get that this movie's trying to, again, be diverse, so that's why you're a brother and sister, but I don't know, like, it seems, again, like the kind of the tokenism just doesn't work, like from Fantastic Four that people complained about, right? And then also I was like, I don't even feel a bond between you guys, right? Like, you don't feel like family. Like, thank goodness that exposition dialogue was written in there, or else I never would have guessed that you were related at all, right? Where is your parents? What's going on here? This is crazy. Then Ben Foster is Medivh. Who else was like, of course he's evil. Have you seen his fingernails? I mean, like, wow, talk about a dead giveaway for the forces of evil at work inside someone. I mean, not only were they long, but they were dirty and weak. I was like, is it from making the golem, perhaps? I was like, nope, I think he's evil. I'd remembered someone mentioning that he was evil before, so that kind of was in the back of my head. And from my own writings for the manga, I know, Medivh becomes like an evil character. But I thought even without that, the movie was a little obvious, like, that he was up to no good, right? Also, he's played by Ben Foster, who's never up to any good. But I thought Ben Foster did some of the best work with the dialogue that he had. But also, one of the problems was that he and Travis Fimmel and Ben Schnetzer and Paula Patton and Ruth Negga and Dominic Cooper, they're all the same age. So it was really weird. Like, usually in a kingdom, you would have people all of different ages working together, right? Like, all different types coming together to do what's best for the kingdom. But here it was like a college class or something, right? It was just weird. And I think the movie would have benefited from a couple of different age groups being, and maybe also just demographics overall being represented in the core group. Then, as for Ben Schnetzer, he got to do some of the coolest magic moves. Like, I just loved when he put that, in the forest when Medivh used the fell to suck all the life out of the orcs, and then Ben Schnetzer's Khadgar protected him with the blue orb. Like, that was just brilliant. I was like, I'm having so much fun. This is so cool. But Ben Schnetzer was just like a giant, talk about sucking the life out of stuff. I think he sucked the life out of this movie to some degree because he was just so poorly cast. He's just so uncharismatic as an actor. But I did like the Kieran tour of Dalaran, and I had to look a lot of this stuff up. If the movie had done a better job, I would have known it off the top of my head because it would have been like so ingrained in me. But I was like, move over, Hogwarts. I'd like to study magic here. I mean, this was super cool. This was like the super groovy equivalent of Hogwarts. I mean, I really liked it. And I liked the whole thing. I liked some of the comedy bits where they were like when that spinning, black square stopped and opened up, and Khadgar was like, should I go in? And the guy's like, I don't know, it's never done that before. I was like, that's pretty cool. So I liked that. So I think that Ben Schnetzer's role of Khadgar was cool and well realized, but it was just so horribly cast. So badly cast. It was like, as I said in my non-spoiler review, it's perhaps some of the worst casting I've ever seen, ever, in a movie. But then I thought it was hilarious that when he went into that spinning black box, and then that shadowy figure turned around, and I was like, who is this? Is this a famous person? And sure enough, it was Glenn Close. I was like, because of course it's Glenn Close. I think Glenn Close has an interesting career path right now, because of course she's not only in this, but she was in Guardians of the Galaxy as the head of the Nova Corps. I'm glad she's game to do this kind of stuff, but she should be careful because if she does too much of it, she's just going to cheapen all of it, right? It's like, are you picking projects you care about, Glenn Close, or are you just trying to collect paychecks? I wasn't quite sure. But she was okay here. I mean, this was a lesser role. She just got to wear and also I was confused as to why her eyes glowed green. I was like, did the fell get her too? It was never explained. I was like, is this all a trick? I don't know. So we'll see. I don't know. But I just thought it was amusing that it was Glenn Close from a Hollywood perspective. Now, I want to talk about the deaths in the movie. A lot of people died in the movie that were lead characters that you wouldn't expect to die. But I appreciated that, even though I didn't always understand the reasoning behind it. Although, before we get to specifics, I thought that the King's command, his second in command that rode into battle with him and Gamora, Garona, Gamora, they're both green, sorry. But I felt really bad that some of them died. Like, I got kind of attached to them. Like, his one of his lead commanders, the black actor, when he got his neck squashed, I actually felt really horrible. And when the other guy, the white guy, who was like, the one that Durotan knocked out when he wanted to talk to Garona, when he was like, when you saw him, like when he saw Llane be killed and he knew that was the end of him, he was like, well, I'm going to die in a horrible death now by the hand of an orc. I felt really bad for him too. Actually, I would say those two deaths were like the worst. Well, were some of the worst. I'd say Draka too, but we're not to her yet. But I actually really felt them. I didn't really feel Dominic Cooper's death as King Llane though. Like, I understood his reasoning to Garona being like, if you kill me, I'm glad he understood orc culture. He was a fast study, but when he was like, you'll have some pull in orc culture going forward. I could understand where he was coming from, but boy, I would be like, could you write this down really quickly maybe or something and sign it? Because you were putting me in a really bad position. And I did feel, the pain that Garona felt being like, man, this is going to be bad for me and Lothar. Like, we're just when we were going to get together, now we're not. Although, now that Lothar rules Stormwind, there are going to be some sexy negotiations going on between the orcs and the humans if they ever get to make a sequel, don't you think? But anyway, I am surprised, though, that Lothar was so quick to believe that, things as they were. And also, is there not a magic spell that Khadgar could have cast on the Dagger to be like, show me what really happened? I've seen a lot of movies and I've read a lot of magic books and comic books, and that seems pretty par for the course. I was surprised that no one thought of that. But then, anyway, and also, who missed Dominic Cooper? He was horrible. He was so bad in the role. He's not good as young Howard Stark. I'm sorry to any Dominic Cooper fans out there, but he's another one, like Ben Schnetzer, that I'm like, why do you work again? All right, so then next, Toby Kebbell is Durotan. We're going to move over to the orcs, and we're going to start it with the orcs that died. I was really surprised that he died, and in a really horrible fashion. I thought for sure that those other orcs were going to rise up and save him. But nope. But you know what? I thought his death was good because it was a noble death, and he really died for his cause and to save And of course, that little orc baby we'll get to the orc baby momentarily, but that's cool. But, I think it was somewhat poetic that both of his parents were dead, right? I thought that was kind of interesting. But, the fact that he died to show that Gul'dan was evil, that was pretty neat. So I liked that. I thought that was good, and you really felt it too. Although Toby Kebbell is another actor that just does not seem to live up to his potential. Right? Everyone's like, Toby Kebbell's so great. I'm like, not seeing it. There's only one Andy Serkis, at least so far. Toby Kebbell, I think, has not reached Andy Serkis levels. Then next, Draka, his mate, she always looked CGI to me. I never bought her as a real character, but I did buy the emotion at the end when she, that other orc, and she wanted to protect her babe, her son. So she jumped on him, and then, she killed him by biting his neck. I mean, that was brutal. But then when she pulled off of him and you could see that she had been impaled by the sword, that was the other death that I was like, that's really too bad. I kind of liked you, orc lady. I felt it. And I thought that it was very powerful, the way she kind of just was like, that's the way things have been going so far ever since we went through that damn gate. And then when she died looking at her son float down the river, Orc Moses, as I said in my trailer reaction, I thought that worked really well. Then as for the orc baby, I like the orc baby. I know a lot of you said that orc baby is important, and I liked that. I would have liked to have seen who picked up the orc baby, but maybe they're like, we could do better casting here if the movie does well, so we'll hold off. This could be anyone. But I liked that the very last thing that orc baby did was growl at the camera. That was awesome, and I liked that when Draka was like, he challenges you already. I was like, this little orc baby's an adorable fighter. Although, who would keep that orc baby after it did that? I'd be like, isn't this the thing that's been ravaging the countryside? Let's take it to Stormwind, I mean, I would not, especially after it growled at me, I'd be like, this cannot end well for me. Then, speaking of bad orcs, I thought that Daniel Wu did a good job as Gul'dan, although with all the orcs, I didn't even, the guy from Pacific Rim, I didn't even put him in here, because he was Durotan's right-hand man. It was really hard to get any actor, coming through the orcs, they were orcs. But I never was who was doing the motion capture for this, with Smaug. I just never felt that way. I was just like, okay, it's the orc that needs to be there. But with Gul'dan, what confused me about Gul'dan, I did like when he was feeding off of stuff. I was like, man, Gul'dan, you cannot stop, snacking on that human spirit next to you. Come on, man. What did we say about snacking? You don't keep this thing near you. You just can't, stop yourself. But I thought that it was weird when he straightened up at the end in that fight when Durotan challenged him. It was kind of like in Game of Thrones, right, with that, that older, priest guy who's like, I'm actually very spry and fit. I was like, well, why have you been pretending all this time? And then Gul'dan, and then why did you reveal it? I guess because you have to fight, but he didn't seem to be taking the challenge that seriously. And then why did you go back to slouching after you revealed that you don't have to slouch? I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with Gul'dan. Gul'dan seemed a little mustache twirly at times. You know what I mean. Finally, I guess for my conclusion for this film, I think there's a really good full fantasy movie in here somewhere. It's just got elves running crazy and magic and all this cool stuff, and it's full of great color and fantasy. And, maybe Disney should have made this movie. Maybe this should have been a Disney movie. Maybe Legendary, I guess, you can't always get the studio you want, but maybe, Universal wasn't a good partner for them. And Universal hasn't had a lot of faith in this. Maybe Disney should consider making a fantasy war movie, right? That could be pretty cool. Is it Mulan? No, that's supposed to be serious. But, I think that there's a good movie in here somewhere, and unfortunately, this team couldn't quite find it. They found it a little. They found it enough for me to really like it as like a half-price matinee, right? A Saturday morning matinee. But it's a little frustrating to think about what it could have been. That's all. But I think, it's better than people are saying. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it down below. And this is a spoiler review, so go to town, say whatever you want. We can have a real good, in-depth discussion. Thank you for going over the movie with me. I look forward to continuing this conversation down below, and you can check out some other episodes right now.